How's it going, guys? Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences in how people learn musical instruments. Now, there's two main approaches that I feel like I've seen in my time as a musician and as a teacher, and that is what I would describe as the academic approach and the natural approach. Okay, so like to think of music and learning guitar, violin, piano, whatever it is. I like to think of learning these musical instruments as learning a language. Music is a language. It's used to express things, it's used to communicate. It's just an artistic language rather than an effective language, much like English or Spanish. So, the way that I've found that makes the most sense for me to be able to help people when they're learning and taking lessons from me and trying to work through guitar and theory, especially, is to think of it as if it were a language. Now, if you have learned a language in like a public high school or, something like that, what you do is you're taking on the language in a more academic approach. And what that means is you show up on the first day of class and you're given a list of vocabulary words and you are given an opportunity to use those vocabulary words right away. And then they start talking about the rules, the way that you're supposed to conjugate verbs, the way that you use things, in a language like Spanish, where, how you gender things and all that sort of fun stuff. And it's great for an academic approach. A lot of classical curriculum works in this way. If you think back to when you were, in third grade and first learning piano, if you ever went through piano lessons, a lot of times you're given a book. And in that book, there are scales, there's the names of the notes, and right off the bat, you're learning songs and how to use them. And your left hand is super simple, and then you use your right hand, and it's just about getting that dexterity down. And then you have another one that's all about reading bass clef, and then it gives you a song to apply to it. That is a more academic approach to learning music. Now we'll take a jump over to this idea of how we learn our native language, right? If you look at the developmental stages in childhood, a lot of times you have a baby and they just grow up hearing, let's say it's English, because for me that's the first language I learned. A lot of people grow up and they're hearing English, they're hearing their parents have a conversation, they're hearing all these interesting things. And so the first thing that they do is they just start making noise. They try to figure it out. It's an actual stage in their development where they just babble, right? And then we move along into a point where they're trying, they have a couple words here and there, but then there's also a lot of babbling still. And then those words become phrases that sort of start to make sense, and we move along, and then all of a sudden they're speaking in sentences. They understand context, they understand all this sort, everything that it takes to communicate. And that is what I would describe as the natural approach to learning music. This is how a lot of guitarists learn. They get onto the internet, they look up tabs, they look up YouTube tutorials, and they find ways to just play the songs that they love. And sometimes they don't do it all correctly, but they get most of it right. And there's all these, this kind of give and take, and they keep going until finally one day they have a whole song, and then they have a couple more songs, and they're taking the things that they learned from previous songs and applying them to other songs. Now, neither of these approaches are wrong. Neither one of these approaches necessarily gives you a different outcome. However, the process is what's significant. In my experience, for most guitarists, they prefer to learn in that more natural way where they're just kind of babbling through everything, and it's great. That's what you should do. And this can be applied further down the road to learning new things, to learning to read music, right? And to learn how to solo, to learn how to not just solo, but to improvise and to use context and to follow the chord changes, right? Much like when we learn our first language, we speak it for quite a few years, and then we end up in elementary school, and that's where we learn all the rules and the ins and outs of how it actually works, and we get corrected on those little things that we've maybe been doing wrong. This is how I think most guitarists like it. And it's also how I think YouTube creators like myself have become so successful it's basically this community of people who have learned by babbling, and now they have this opportunity with YouTube to come on and get corrected on all the little things. They understand the basic lingo, they just need a little bit of extra help. So the next question is, what do I do now to apply this? Well, it all depends on your personal feelings and also on your personal level, right? If you're already at an intermediate level from learning in an academic way, you will probably be more likely to respond to a more academic approach. If you're at an intermediate level where you're already playing and you just feel stuck, chances are you learned in a more natural way, and you need to find ways to overcome these humps that you're experiencing because you don't understand the actual inner workings of all the rules of music and ins and outs and that sort of thing. This is where, again, YouTube channels come in handy. Private lessons are crucial from someone who has gone through further than you have. They can get into the trenches with you and figure out what's going on. At the end of the day, music is a communicative device. It's something that we as artists and players use to communicate our feelings, to communicate our thoughts with listeners all over, whether that's in a live setting, a recorded setting, or whatever. Your performance and how you put together your solos, how you put together your melodic lines, your harmonic structures, all that sort of stuff, all comes back to, I have something that I feel like I need to say, and I want to put it out there. And so with that in mind, this is where theory becomes important. There's a great masterclass that's on YouTube, and it's John Mayer returning to Berklee College of Music, which he attended briefly, and talking about a lot of different things. He talks about artistry, professionalism, and one of the main things that he talks about is goal setting. And it's a really awesome masterclass. You all should go watch it right away. But one thing that stuck out to me from that, he talks about in a brief moment, the importance of learning theory, because music sounds different to everyone else. The way he describes it is he describes, I hear these chords and I hear red, purple, blue, green, jealousy. And somebody else could hear that and feel or hear something different. It could be a little bit more of like an anguish feel. And that's why we learn the chord names. That's why we learn the theory. It helps us to communicate with our audience as well as other musicians. At the end of the day, there's a million different things that you can do to learn guitar. I remember I was blown away when I started college and started studying guitar, and I was hoping that everything would be corrected and I would fall into this curriculum, and I found out it ended up being a lot of, you have the guitar, you play the guitar, what works for you to get better? And I will help you along that path. And that is that very natural approach. So what do you guys think? Do you think that you're more of an academic player or a natural player? Let me know what you think the pros and cons are to each of those. And of course, if you haven't already, like and subscribe. We'll see you around.